Thank you, everybody, for joining my meeting today. Today's meeting is a bit special because we feel the loss of our beloved mentor, President Ikeda. So I will start the meeting with a writing that I received 2 days ago, which is a brief summary of President Ikeda. So let me start. It says, Daisaku Ikeda, a tribute. Let me start. We join members of the Soccer Gakkai around the world in paying tribute to the extraordinary life and contributions of our mentor, Daisaku Ikeda, Honorary President of the Soccer Gakkai and President of the Soccer Gakkai International SGI. Daisaku Ikeda was a Buddhist philosopher, peace builder, educator, author, and poet who dedicated his life to promoting peace through dialogue and spearheaded the development of the Soccer Gakkai as a community-based Buddhist organization of over 12 million members worldwide. Mr. Ikeda passed away peacefully on November 15, 2023, at the age of 95. Born on January 2, 1928, in Tokyo, Japan, Daisaku Ikeda was the fifth son in a large family engaged in seaweed farming. In his youth, he suffered from chronic tuberculosis and was not expected to live beyond 30. Mr. Ikeda survived a tough childhood that was overshadowed by escalating nationalistic militarism. The education system of the time aimed to produce loyal subjects trained to serve the interests of the state. When he was 13, Japan entered World War II. Mr. Ikeda's elder brothers were all conscripted. His eldest brother, who had shared with the young Daisaku what he witnessed of the true horrors of the war in China, he was killed in Myanmar. Witnessing his mother's grief when news of her son's death was finally broken to her in 1947, he acutely felt the cruelty and waste of war. Mr. Ikeda said, "My mother is the starting point of my activities for peace. She remained brave and undaunted, though 4 of her sons were taken away from her, one after another, to fight in World War II. But then, after the war, she received the news that her eldest son had been killed in the fighting. She was heartbroken. I will never forget the sight of her pain and sorrow at that moment as long as I live." A few months later, together with fellow members of a small reading group that exchanged books saved from the ruins of war, he attended a meeting about philosophy held at a local house. There, he encountered Josei Toda, who was sharing Nichiren Buddhism with its teaching that aimed to liberate people from their sufferings and create a society based on respect for the fundamental dignity and equality of all people. This empowering philosophy, based on the Lotus Sutra, offered hope to ordinary people suffering economic deprivation and hopelessness amid the devastation of Japan's defeat. Sensei said, Mr. Toda conversed openly and naturally. There was no trace of the condescending, puffed-up arrogance so common among religious and political figures wrapped up in formalities. Though it was our first meeting, I felt free to ask whatever questions I had in my young heart. That Mr. Toda had been persecuted by the Japanese military's authorities and spent 2 years in prison for his beliefs was pivotal in my decision to embrace him as my mentor. I wanted to live my life as a person of courage, who would not bow to any kind of oppression by the authorities. That was why I was seeking a practical philosophy that would help me do that. Mr. Toda, an educator, ardent pacifist, and leader of the Soka Gakkai Buddhist group, emphasized the unlimited potential inherent in each individual's life. He was engaged in rebuilding the Soka Gakkai, which had been suppressed by the military's authorities during the war. Mr. Ikeda embraced Nichiren Buddhism, and the relationship with his mentor, Josei Toda, defined the rest of his life. He said, "Reflecting on my life leaves me with a sense of wonder and awe at just how much Toda Sensei's existence has meant to me. That a man so mediocre as myself could succeed the late Toda Sensei as head of the Soka Gakkai and assist in the unprecedented undertaking of Kozen Rufu. The propagation of the spirit and teachings of true Buddhism is due solely to the fact that I have never for so much as an instant let the image of this great leader depart from my mind and heart." And this is what we are doing with Sensei also. "The greatest happiness of my life is that I was able to meet him and become his disciple and follower, and that the relationship of teacher and student was sustained until the very end of his life." Mr. Toda taught the young Ikeda all he could, giving him a broad education that he would draw on over the course of his life. Mr. Ikeda was by his side as they spread the teachings of Nichiren throughout Japan. He was present when, at the height of the Cold War in 1957, Mr. Toda made a declaration calling for the abolition of nuclear weapons. Shortly before his death in 1958, this declaration inspired Mr. Ikeda to lifelong advocacy toward nuclear abolition. He says, "If we are to put the era of nuclear terror behind us, we must struggle against the real enemy. That enemy is not nuclear weapons per se, nor is it the states that possess or develop them. The real enemy that we must confront is the ways of thinking that justify nuclear weapons, the readiness to annihilate others when they are seen as a threat or as a hindrance to the realization of our objectives." In May 1960, Mr. Ikeda was inaugurated as the third president of the Soka Gakkai at the age of 32. He dedicated his life to the growth and development of the Buddhist organization, traveling throughout Japan to encourage and empower local members, especially youth. He says, "Young people are the treasures of a nation and the wealth of tomorrow's world. Nothing is more precious. Undermining the future of youth and robbing them of their vitality is like tossing the treasure into the sea." He also oversaw the broadening of the Soka Gakkai's mission to include the promotion of peace, culture, and education. Under his leadership, the organization reached the membership of more than 8 million households in Japan, making it an influential presence in Japanese society. He says, "The Lotus Sutra teaches of the great hidden treasure of the heart, as vast as the universe itself, which dispels any feelings of powerlessness. It teaches a dynamic way of living in which we breathe the immense life of the universe itself. It teaches the true great adventure of self-reformation." Soon after his inauguration as president in 1960, Mr. Ikeda embarked on the first of many journeys to support Soka Gakkai members outside Japan in their Buddhist practice. In 1975, the Soka Gakkai International was founded as a global association linking Soka Gakkai organizations around the world, and he became its president. Dr. Ikeda's vision of personal transformation as the driving force for social change, referred to as human revolution, this is written by a gentleman called Herbie Hancock, has molded my approach to decision-making and has served me well, not only as a musician, but as a spouse, father, teacher, friend, Buddhist, and ultimately as a human being. President Ikeda was a prolific writer who published more than 250 translated works, ranging from commentaries on Buddhism to biographical essays, poetry, and children's stories. He also authored an extensive novelized history of the Soka Gakkai, The Human Revolution, 12 volumes, and The New Human Revolution, 30 volumes. A spirit of encouragement is integral to Ikeda's poetry and inseparable from it, wrote Sarah Ann Wider. A close long-term colleague of his remarks, this practice of encouragement for him is everything. When he composes poems, whether long or short, his single-minded determination is, I am going to enable this person to become happy without fail. I have to do something for this person. The momentary crystallization of that spirit, that heart, becomes a poem. It turns into language immediately. Starting in the 1970s, President Ikeda met with key individuals in a wide array of fields to promote peace through dialogue and mutual understanding. He also devoted great effort to promoting Sino-Japanese relations, believing that constructive encouragement with China was fundamental to the stability of the region. He engaged in dialogue with the leadership of China, the Soviet Union, and the USA, striving to defuse Cold War tensions. He later reflected that he was in a privileged position because he was not constrained in the way a politician would be. I can talk to people as one human being to another, and it was in that role that I hoped, in some small way, to help bring together the will for peace on all sides. President Ikeda also conducted dialogues with prominent figures from around the world in the fields of culture, education, and different faith traditions, including British historian Arnold Toynbee and former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, in order to identify ways of tackling the complex problems facing humanity. More than 80 of these dialogues have been published in book form. Ikeda took copious notes on our conversation, wrote Lawrence Edward Carter. I was so struck by that. What I sensed most from him was a tremendous sincerity, unpretentious, open and honest, with no ego at all. He seemed to be coming from a place of such profound, non-violence humility and concern for humanity that even after spending a relative brief time with him, I felt hurt, seen, known, and whole. A firm believer in the central role of the United Nations as a forum for peace from 1983 to 2022, President Ikeda authored annual peace proposals, providing a Buddhist perspective and concrete suggestions to move forward discourse on the key challenges of the day, including disarmament and the abolition of nuclear weapons, environmental protection, and the promotion of human rights. He developed a philosophy of humanism anchored in the principles of Buddhism and advocated education for global citizenship. In 1983, the SGI was accredited as a non-governmental organization, NGO. I know of no one who has highlighted the role and responsibility of the United Nations so consistently, relentlessly, and substantively for such a long period of time as President Ikeda. Written by the Ambassador Charles Hurry. For the last 40 years, his annual peace proposals have contained brilliant ideas and suggestions for the good of humanity. I am encouraged. He has highlighted empowerment of people as a major element in building the culture of peace. Daisaku Ikeda founded the Soka education system, which encompasses kindergartens in 5 countries, elementary to graduate study in Japan, schools in Brazil and Malaysia, and a liberal arts college in the USA. Soka, literally value creating. Education is a student-centered approach based on the educational philosophy of Soka Gakkai founding president, Mr. Makaguchi, believing that a transformative process of education is key to reshaping the times. He saw education as the most crucial undertaking of his life. Sensei says, I think I can state with confidence that the following are essential elements of global citizenship: the wisdom to perceive the interconnectedness of all life, the courage not to fear or deny difference, but to respect and strive to understand people of different cultures and to grow from encounters with them, and the compassion to maintain an imaginative empathy that reaches beyond one's immediate surroundings and extends to those suffering in distant places. President Ikeda also founded organizations for the advancement of peace and culture, including the Minnon Concert Association, Tokyo Fuji Art Museum, the Institute of Oriental Philosophy, the Toda Peace Institute, and the Ikeda Center for Peace, Learning and Dialogue. He also founded the Komiko political party in Japan to promote social welfare and peace. Daisaku Ikeda was a passionate poet, accomplished nature photographer, and devoted father of 2 sons. The 71-year partnership he had with his wife, Kaniko, underpinned all his efforts, and he described her as his best and closest comrade through all life's struggles. Daisaku Ikeda's legacy as mentor, author, philosopher, and champion of dialogue will live on through the millions of people he has inspired in person and through his extensive writings. President Ikeda, in my opinion, the most seasoned dialogical partner in the world today. Since his celebrated dialogue with Arnold Toynbee, for half a century, he has been the champion of cultivating world peace through dialogue, which entails the art of deep listening. Through dialogical encounters with many public intellectuals from all corners of the world, President Ikeda has helped extend the intellectual horizons and deepen critical self-reflectivity of dozens of thinkers of our time. His contribution to the life of the mind throughout the world is enormous. His robustly positive approach to life is summed up in this passage from The Peace of the Human Revolution, which exemplifies his own life. Quote, "A great inner revelation revolution in just a single individual will help achieve a change in the destiny of a nation, and further, will enable a change in the destiny of all humankind." Unquote. Today, I will continue my sharing on the topic of life and death in memory of our beloved President Ikeda. Let me start. Our attitudes and beliefs regarding death have a great influence on our approach to life. There is perhaps no greater grief than being parted from a loved one by death. And though we know with the surest certainty that our time here is limited and that no one can escape the impermanence of life, this does little to prepare us for the shock of death or to help us approach our own inevitable separation from this world. Why are we born? Why must we die? What value can we create from this fragile existence? It was from the search for answers to these questions that Buddhism came into being. Buddhism teaches that we should not shrink from the fact of death, but squarely confront it. Our contemporary culture has been described as one that seeks to avoid and deny the fundamental question of our mortality. It is the awareness of death, however, that compels us to examine our lives and to seek to live meaningfully. Death enables us to treasure life. It awakens us to the preciousness of each shared moment. In the struggle to navigate the sorrow of death, we can forge a radiant treasure of fortitude in the depths of our being. Through that struggle, we become more aware of the dignity of life and more readily able to empathize with the suffering of others. From the Buddhist perspective, life and death are two phases of a continuum. Life does not begin at birth, nor end at death. Everything in the universe, from invisible microbes in the air we breathe to great swirling galaxies, passes through these phases. Our individual lives are part of this cosmic rhythm. We are part of the universe. We have the same elements as the universe. Everything in the universe, everything that happens, is part of a vast living web of interconnection. The vibrant energy we call life, which flows throughout the universe, has no beginning and no end. Life is a continuous, dynamic process of change. So, having read so much, I hope everybody from now on will not be afraid of death, because it's a part of life. After death, we'll have another life. So don't scare. Don't be afraid. Shakyamuni perceived that desire is the fundamental impulse that drives life onward, tying us to the cycle of birth and death. At each moment, impulses of various desires prompt thought, speech, and action, which comprise the latent force of our individual karma. Through these causes and effects, actions and reactions, we shape ourselves and our circumstances from instant to instant, perpetuating a fluid process that has continued over countless existences. Moreover, Shakyamuni taught there is no permanent soul or self that has existed throughout all this time, but simply the continuity of karmic energy that generates the illusion of an unchanging essence of life. 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni had already identified that life is just energy, and this is confirmed by today's scientific studies. So life is all but energies. And energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Okay, let me go on. The Lotus Sutra, however, brings forth a completely revolutionary view of human beings, asserting that there is a profound purpose to our lives in this world. The Buddhist scripture, which Nichiren and a lineage of Buddhist scholars before him regarded as the most complete and perfect expression of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, emphasizes that the essential nature of our lives at any moment is that of a Buddha. Awakening to the truth of one's inherent Buddha nature, one discovers this fundamental sense of purpose, and life takes on a completely different and fundamentally joyful quality. President Toda often likened death to sleep. It's just like sleep. Just as we awake refreshed after sleep and energized after a good night's sleep, those who pass away having chanted Nam-myoho Renge-kyo throughout their lives will, after a period of rest, be reborn to once again join the ranks of those striving for Kosen Rufu. But what is the Buddha nature, and how does one awaken to it? In essence, the Buddha nature is the impulse inherent in life to relieve suffering and bring happiness to others. It is encapsulated in the Lotus Sutra by the statement, "At all times, I think to myself, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha?" Now, these are the last 4 sentences of our Gongyo. Maiji Sasenen, Iga Ryu Sujo, Tokunu Mujoto Sokujoju Bushin. Meaning, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha? At all times. This is in my thought. Actually, I want to add, to practice Nichiren Buddhism, yes, we gain all benefits. All right? We have our wishes granted. But the ultimate aim is for us to help others by getting all the benefits, all the actual proofs are just tools, TOOLS, for us to encourage other people. So this is a Buddhism for the happiness of everybody, not just us, but everybody. And the fact that we have benefits is because we need the benefits to help other people. President Ikeda said, "Why do you need a car? Why do you have a car? Because you need to drive other members to meetings. Why do you have a home? Why do you have a house? Because you want to hold meetings to encourage other members. All the things that we get in this life are means to encourage other people. This is the ultimate aim of our practice." Okay, let me go on. Our existence itself then becomes an expression of this vow. From the enlightened perspective of Buddhahood, we are born freely into the world with a resolve to awaken others to their Buddha nature. When we awake to this purpose, the causes and effects within our lives become the causes and effects of Buddhahood. The particular circumstances of our lives and character, our sufferings and triumphs, become the means to demonstrate the power of the Buddha nature and form bonds of empathy with others. Now, again, I have to reiterate, why can we attain happiness? Why can we relieve suffering and achieve our goals by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? I have kept on repeating and repeating because it is so important that we know what we are doing. By chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we are bringing forth the potential, as Western people say, or the Buddhahood, as Nichiren Buddhism or Buddhism says, in us. It's all inside our lives. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the actual power in our own life. It's the Buddhahood. And what is Buddhahood? I will again repeat and repeat. Buddhahood is the wisdom, courage, life force, energy, compassion, good fortune, and peace. We've got all this quality within ourselves. So if we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and bring forth all these good qualities in ourselves, when we face a problem, we have the wisdom to know why we have this problem. We have the wisdom to be able to find a solution to this problem. And if we can solve the problem, we know we can solve the problem, we can bring forth courage to solve the problem. We can take action. And because we are enthusiastic and courageous, we bring forth our life force to do what we can to solve our problems. And if we bring the best in ourselves, the universe is a magnetic field. We can bring forth all the good things from the universe, from other people to help us. This is why we can attain happiness, even though when you are suffering, when you face problem, you are still happy because you know you can solve it. And then after solving the problem, you are on a higher plateau. And then you can also share this experience with other people to encourage them not to worry, to have hope, to go on, to chant, to bring forth the best to solve the problem. So this is how this Buddhist practice can help us. Okay, let me go on. This awakening to the Buddha nature is also sometimes described as an awakening to the greatest self. Daisaku Ikeda comments, the greatest self always seeks to alleviate pain and to augment the happiness of others. This is just what I've said here amid the realities of everyday life. Furthermore, the dynamic, vital awakening of the greatest self enables each individual to experience both life and death with equal delight. Our lives in the world of Buddhahood are not directed by our karma, but by our vow, our sense of mission. We are fundamentally free because we know we can change our karma. Unawakened to this reality, or when our lives become disconnected from this vow, we lead lives of common mortals, governed by and subject to the ups and downs of our karma. The ultimate questions of life and death are, in the end, a matter of theory and belief. What matters is how we live, our awareness of life's preciousness, and the value we are able to create during an experience that passes. In Nichiren's words, as quickly as a white horse glimpses through a crack in the wall. Most of us tend to imagine that there will always be another chance to meet and talk with our friends and or relatives again. So it doesn't matter if a few things go unsaid. But to live fully and without regret is to extend oneself to others to the utmost, bringing one's full being to the moment, with the sense that it may be one's last encounter. I have always said, do what you think is right for yourself and for other people. Don't wait until tomorrow. Who knows? What happened to tomorrow? We may not even be in this world, or the other person may not be in this world. So do all the good things for yourself and for other people at this moment. The Lotus Sutra's view of life and death is one that continually opens our awareness to those with whom we share this life, our friends, our family, our colleagues, SGI members, urging us to develop rich and contributive lives. When we take action for the happiness of others, we feel a renewed energy and a sense of connection to our deepest essence. As we continue in these efforts over time, our lives acquire an increasing sense of expansiveness and strength. In this way, we bring forth the most positive aspects of our humanity and create a treasured existence together with others. In summary, what I've shared with you about life and death is to help us treasure every moment in our life, live life to the fullest, and do everything we can to make ourselves a better person and to make other people happy. This is the most meaningful and fulfilling life. And if we can continue to do it day and night, every day, then when the moment comes for us to leave this world, we will live with no regret. We will have a smile on our face. And we will come back very soon to this world again to help other people in a very good condition. Okay, this is what I have to share today. Thank you very much for listening.